Peace, peace. Peace. How's everybody doing? Let's get started. Giving honor and praise unto our Maker. We hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. This particular presentation is something I say in due respect, was not intended upon being addressed or being talked about or so forth and so on. This is not what, to use the term loosely, what you call a shot against anyone. I call it man get woman, woman get man. One of the phrases I use is speaking upon our grandparents in many cases. The book that they have on their shelf says it's not good for man to be alone. So I, the maker, will make him a helpmate, which in Hebrew is ezer. You understand? And so in light of that, if everything in Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2 was made and was good, except man being alone, how can we sit back and think that being alone, deliberate or otherwise, is a good thing? If we know and understand the modern terminology that, quote, no man is an island, what makes us think that it is okay, permissible, or acceptable for such to exist? Now, we want to dispel some of the ideas that some may have, and no disrespect intended, like, well, it's better to be by yourself than with the wrong person. On this platform, we are not encouraging you who may not be good for someone else or someone who may not be good for you to be together. So that is obvious. Just as much, though not as deep, when we read in the commandments, it says you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So it is implied that you already love yourself. So when we speak upon a matter of saying man get woman, woman get man, there's nothing wrong with inserting the adjective good in that. Get a good woman, get a good man. But what we are saying is that get one that is, quote, good for you. And these are things that we care to sit there and talk about for reference purposes. We hope and pray, again, that everybody is well and will be better. I do not know who is online now, but I'm able to sit there and see from the chat that or from the video that I'm watching of myself that I can be heard pretty well. So I'm not going to ask if you hear me well, press the number 4 in that particular case. But this is just something to point out, if we will. What we're going to do is pull up the PowerPoint and go from there, family. This is on the platform, Mora Yeshaya History Lessons, Mora Yeshaya Torah Lessons, and the Facebook profile, Yeshaya Author Danite. So let's look at this, if we will, family. All right. We're going to start here from the beginning. Let's see if it shows on that, or do I have to restart the screen? Let's see. Yep. Got to restart the screen. Not a problem. It is what it is, say, in that particular case. All right. So stop, share screen. And we are going to take that part off. The meaning that says man get a woman, woman get a man, that's in the presentation. I'm explaining what I mean by posting that, say, in that particular case. All right. So let us pull this up, slideshow. In this particular case, Shalom, Israel, peace, black people. What do I mean by putting it like that? Shalom comes from the Hebrew root word shalom, which means to be complete. It also means to be compensated. If I were to say shilam ti, it means I compensated. It also means I paid. And these are things we care to bring out for reference purposes. Peace is another meaning from the word shalom, black people. Now, this is not to be racial, but we want to reach our people. And why do I want to talk about that in that particular case, in this particular moment, is because of all people on the earth, correct me if I'm wrong, that sit there and shout, when they go to clubs, parties, shows, events, talking about being single and happy for it. Last weekend, we had what could be called a baby shower regarding my little one. For those who do know, not to get too personal, my little one is expecting. So that changed a lot of things in my life as well. This quote unquote year, 2024, I remember going out to places like shows, events, amusement parks, being around social environments. And the most single people is our people. You see every other race generally with his or her mate. Just like the animals going into Noah's Ark, each animal went with his mate. What happened with us and our mates? When you look, in many cases, I remember when I was a child and I would sit there and be brought to the job that my mother had, may she rest in peace, like bring your child to work day and so forth. And I remember seeing on the tables who was shown with her husband and who was shown with his wife at the office table and who was shown single by her table, the black woman. And these things, looking at it in this particular case, is what I want to show to not be quote racial, but truthful, if we will. You understand? So, one of the things, again, to bring out for reference purposes, thank you for that, my brother, Saliyah Ben Yah, saying loud and clear. Appreciate it. One of the things, again, that we care to sit there and bring out for reference purposes is we need not, family, opt to be alone. We have honestly rolled on the premise of it's better to be alone than with the wrong person. Well, when do we make ourselves the right person? How long will we stay in imperfection one with another and use that as a catalyst, as a crutch, for the lack of a better term, to sit there and be like, you know what? Well, it is what it is. It's all good. No, it is not all good. Just as much as when you read in the scriptures in Jeremiah, when it said they have healed the hurt of the daughter of my people, saying peace, peace, where there is no peace. And these are things that we care to sit there and bring out for reference purposes. This is due to the fact that many, more than usual, you may say, are speaking about a struggle, a hurdle, and so on. But we want to dissect why this exists. Please subscribe to the channel. Now, I'm not coming on here as a psychologist or psychiatrist. I am coming on the platform as a person who has a child, was a child, becoming a grandparent, had grandparents, have siblings, have been engaged, have been in relationships, have been single, and things of that kind of nature. So, looking upon it in that, I do not come off as holier than thou. I do not come off as saying I have a degree and certified in this kind of matter. What's made me motivated to go into this kind of matter is speaking with immediate family and friends and loved ones from the West Coast of the United States to the East Coast of the United States, from the southern states to the northern states. And some of the same prevailing statement is the struggle is real. How's everything? I'm struggling. What's wrong? I need another job. Things is too hard. Why are things too hard? Now, as a person, not to get too personal, who's in the process of moving while working in New York, but in the process of moving from New York City was not intended for anybody to set residence in. It was to be a metropolis. You go there, you make your money, and then you get out. It's for the metro matter. Polis or polis, correct me if I'm wrong, is the word for city. All right. So New York City was not intended when it was established after the Revolutionary War for people to sit there and set up shop and live there. Manhattan, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, which at that time, Staten Island in many cases was a big forest. It was made for agriculture before they cut down all the trees and built houses, and for you to go there, make your money, and then go to Connecticut, go to New Jersey, and so forth. New York City is very difficult to live in because it was never meant to be comfortable to live in that city. That's why you find businesses okay working from home. That's why you find businesses okay leaving the city in a real estate matter and so forth and so on. And so when we begin to sit back and look and see, quote, the struggle and the hurdle, why is that in that case? This is what this presentation is about. Please subscribe to the channel. Pay attention. This is reading from the scriptures in Isaiah 42. Hear ye deaf and look ye blind, that ye may see. Who is blind but my servant, or deaf as my messenger that I send? Who is blind as he that is wholehearted, and blind as the most high servant? Seeing many things thou observest not, opening the ears he heareth not. The most high was pleased for his righteousness' sake, to make the teaching great and glorious. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none saith, Hashab. Hashab meaning restore. What are we talking about when it says, no one says restore? Restore the old desolate mindset. Restore the old desolate places that you read of in the scriptures. The mindset, the spirituality, if we will, when everyone and many people, pardon me, are saying, I'm spiritual. There's different spirits. There are good spirits. There are bad spirits. There are jealous spirits. There are emotional spirits. There are content spirits. Which spirit do we have when we say, I'm spiritual? I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. There's all kinds, again, spirits, also known as attitudes, also known as aura, also known as disposition, also known as mentality. Which one do we have when we speak upon such? That is the question. Because one of the things inciting the scriptures here in Isaiah 42, where it says, hear ye deaf and look ye blind. So the hearing in the blind is not per se physical, it's spiritual, it's mental, it's emotional. That ye may see. Who is blind but my servant? Who is the servant? Isaiah chapter 48, verse 20 lets us know that the servant is Jacob / Israel. Or deaf as my messenger that I sent. Who is deaf but the messenger? If you the messenger and you deaf, then how can you possibly deliver the correct message? You didn't hear it because you didn't hear with your spiritual ear. And when I say you, I'm not talking directly to the people listening. I'm talking about, say, us as a people. How is it that we read, take the house of Israel, for instance, year in and year out, it's not good for man to be alone. So he will have a helpmate made for him. But then we turn right around and sit there and, for the lack of a better term, cock block our children who are growing up to sit there and find his or her spouse. How can that possibly be? Eventually, your princess is going to be with a male. We're talking hetero matters and promotion when we talk about mates. Eventually, your prince is going to be with a lady. And so one of the things that we care to sit there and bring out and get into this matter is, if the message from the messenger that is sent is speaking about restoring, we have to restore the households. We have to restore the family structure. We have to restore these kind of things. And this is something that, not trying to be personal on the platform, when a brother is talking about whether it's quote unquote their holiday time and quote spending time with family, and the things that have been discussed, the things that are overheard, and is not trying to sit there and toot one's horn, is like, wow. Let me give an example. There was a song some time ago saying, in quote, my baby's father ain't no good. My baby's father ain't doing what he should. There was another song some time ago that said, ladies, leave your man at home. Go to the club where their pockets are full blown. Fellas, leave your ladies at home. So what that Destiny's Child some years ago was promoting was swingers, if you will. Just go out and quote, do you, so to speak. They're dealing with the matter of emotion and not per se the wisest in that particular matter. So now, when we read here, or who is deaf as my messenger that I send, who is blind as he that is wholehearted and blind as the Most High's servant. Seeing many things, thou observest not. Opening the ears, he heareth not. So when these kind of things are being presented, are our eyes and our ears being opened? And are we able to sit there and see what it is? Far too long. For over a good, my princess is now 18, and she was born in 06. And I remember what I'm gonna talk about a little later on about a show that came over maybe 8 or 10 years before she came into this earth. I'm living single. What mentality were our princes and princesses being born into? I have a relative who told me to tell my daughter that boys are nasty. I'm not teaching my princess that. Why would anyone giving some kind of advice sit there and state, as quote, boys are nasty? This is not to be personal, but I only have one little child. So if I were to ever become a grandparent, it's going to come through that one child that's growing into a grown woman. So if I sit there and bedaubed her ears with boys are nasty, then where is she supposed to go for the things that I as a man can't do for my daughter? When she's 25, 26 and want a massage, it probably ain't my place to do that, being 100 about it. When she is 25, 26 and dealing with something emotional, 35 and 36, if I'm still here, you understand? And she gets emotional or starts to cry, where am I going to be at? How can I sit there and deal, having beat my daughter in the head verbally by saying boys are nasty? So who is she supposed to turn to as a solace? Oh, that's right. We're living single. I'm doing my thing. That was the quote premise of such. So no, I'm not teaching my little princess, old relative who supports homosexuality, bisexuality, singlehood. I'm not telling my princess that boys are nasty. You can miss me with that. So these are things that we care to sit there and bring out for reference purposes. It goes on to say, the Most High was pleased for his righteousness' sake to make the teaching, which some translate as to make the law great and glorious. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. What are we robbed of? Do you know what spoiled means? In war, you go and strip the slain of the spoils. Was war made against us? When we robbed, did they have a quote, Coitel Pro, the quote, rise of the Black Messiah, and sit there and try to hinder every kind of way that they can sit there and try to do such? So now when we read here and it says, this people are robbed and spoiled, they are all of them sneered in holes. What are the holes? I'm doing me. Can't nobody tell me I'm good all by myself. You done created your own hole. In the siege, in the straightness, wherein your enemy shall straighten you in your gates. Sound familiar, Israel? He shall eat the flesh of his own son and of his own daughter, for he has nothing left him. Now, eat in Hebrew is the word akal, which also means to destroy. So now here we are destroying our future in the siege, in the straightness, having been robbed and spoiled. And now the sons are growing up. Like I see some of my family, and this is not to get too personal, some young brothers, like it says in Deuteronomy 28, you shall grope at noonday like the blind gropes in darkness. What you doing? Nothing, chilling, nigga. That's what it is. And so these are things, part of the wording that we want to sit there and bring out, to sit there and bring our people when we start talking about restore. So no offense intended to the Israelite brothers and sisters who did not understand a month ago when I went online and I sat there and said, why I'm leaving, quote, the Israelites. Was not saying I was saying I'm of another ethnicity or didn't want to have nothing to do with the way of life. No, I am talking about the week in, week out. The debate over when is a holy day. No. We're not doing that. I'm not joining the calendar coalition to sit there and debate left and right for over. I'm 44 now. I remember that conversation when I was 15 years old. No lie. I remember calendar coalition back in 1995. Are we serious? So for almost 30 years, Israelites have been talking about, debating, confronting each other about the timing of a holy day. 30 years. Since then, we done became grandparents since then in certain cases. What are we doing? Honestly. So this is why, looking at it in that particular manner, no, move on. We read, forsake the foolish and live and go in a way of understanding. So if it means having to forsake your own foolishness and live, go in a way of understanding. Reading this part right here, again in Isaiah 42, they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth for a spoil. They are for a prey. Excuse me. Who are the animals that are taking their prey? The beast. Who do we call the beast in many cases? In the hoods, in the holes, in the prison houses, where we are hidden away at. The quote authorities, if you will. They were called the beast since I can remember, and I heard it was before I even came in existence. So, two things. One thing, when we say the said Old Testament relates to us, this is what we're talking about. The other thing is it talks about it and none saith restore. So that's telling us that we're supposed to say restore. Restore, as it says in the book of Malachi, O house of Israel, that the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to their fathers. So that means that the unity has to come back into existence. But I can't sit there and tell my little princess that boys are nasty and then want her children in the future to want to be united with her. What is that imbibing in thought? If it's generally said that a man is going to want a woman that's like his mother, and that daughters yearn toward their fathers, and that is her first or primary example of what a man would be for her, how does it look if I sit there and take some of the flesh and blood or extended relatives that sit there and say, well, regarding your daughter, you should sit there and say boys is nasty. You out of your mind. I'm not teaching my child that. And I hope you don't teach your child that, because that is not restoring. That is toxic. For those who do know, not to get too personal, brother's been around family and trying to, quote, repair breaches and things of that kind of nature, and working on my own self at the same token for a better. One of the things we care to point out is you cannot, family, disrespect what you're born into. The statement that says you cannot, quote, pick your family is toxic. Everyone is not going to click with everybody, but we as a people, sadly, present a way for us not to be united. We're the only people who I know who sit there and do it. And I know because I work around other ethnicities. I may not be in their houses, but when I'm doing the other shift at the job, you see who comes in by themselves and out by themselves. Like, wow. You sit there and see, no disrespect intended. I had to go on a trip with my son because no man wants her. She can't, quote, keep a man. So her son becomes in spirit and place of a man. These are things, brothers and sisters, seeing it in family, extended and immediate. These are things that we have to sit back and be like, what are we doing? This is why we read in the Apocrypha in the book of Sirach, when it says, give your daughter to a man, but give her to a man of understanding. You understand? Looking at it like that, when it says, and none saith restore, the Hebrew word that's used there for restore in Hebrew is hashab. It comes from the word shab, which means to return. To restore, to return. Let us return one to another. That is a point. I'm going to have to ask regarding the next slide if there's children around, maybe not to be seen per se. That's your decision. But I want it to be raw yet respectful at the same time, because we are talking about a real matter that happens with real situations. Thank you. In that case, get with somebody, people. Give it honor to our maker. This right here, brothers and sisters, is from the description inside the YouTube itself of this video. This presentation is brought to you by Danitepublications. In this, we will explain that it is and has been imperative that a man has a woman and a woman has a man. In many cases, divorces, breakups, and separations are promoted more than marriages, hookups, and reunions. And I put an asterisk next to hookups. By hookups, I mean where a third party does her skill to bring a couple together in respect. From the era of the 1990s, where living single and divorce court were promoted, to the era of today, where abortions are promoted, we see the unity and growth of man and woman has declined. Shalom, man, king. It comes into a matter of looking at it like that, where abortions are promoted, while saying people want to take away your rights, even if it's by incest or rape, which is kind of ridiculous, because we will understand that incest would have to be rape, unless there's some real freak, nasty, perverted stuff going on in unison. Incest must fall under rape in that case, and so forth. So these are things that we care to sit there, if we will, bring out for reference purposes. I do not present this as a person who knows everything, but as a person who hopefully this can shed light, if we will, family. All right. Let's continue, if we will, pardon me, with that. In this vein, thank you for that, family. Excuse me with that. Had to restart this right here. Now let's look. It goes on to say, this is especially true for the black people, our people. When traveling out, you will see the single people are mainly our people. And this is something I have seen in my family and others. Several people recently have spoken to me about how times are tough and needing a second job. With inflation existing and evictions are on the rise, we still cannot get it together that we as grown men and women need each other. We were duped to thinking we can be alone and well. Question mark. We were duped to thinking it is more of a reality to do bad all by myself. Question. We have to make ourselves responsible and accountable. The world is not based on feelings, and as Aristotle, for what it's worth, stated, the law is free of emotion. We hope and pray that everyone is well and will be better. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you. I can be reached at 908-587-4841. Brothers and sisters, looking at it in this particular case. Many times when you sit there and tell brothers or sisters, tell brothers get a woman, or tell sisters get a man, some of the usual statements is make sure you get the right one. Of course, that is already implied. But if you need that as a way, then so be it. We hope you get the right one. And we also hope that you're the right one for someone to be gotten, because it goes both ways, if we will, family, in that particular case. You understand? So now, if we will, wanted to point this out. Were we duped into thinking that it is okay, acceptable, and meaningful to, quote, be by oneself? Is that what people were told and promoted and try to influence others in that kind of matter? I went recently to a club with some family members, And this is in part what makes me want to talk upon this. And the comedian said two things I wanted to talk about. And to the single people, and a relative of mine was like, yo. And I'm sitting up there like, okay, like, yeah, singlehood. You are in your 30s talking about singlehood. Something is wrong. Someone, because everybody needs somebody. But when you have taught children and been made to believe, since maybe a child, that you're not worth someone or someone is not worth you, you have to use that matter as a way of a cloak to say, I am, quote, okay and good. Let me break it down or expound upon it, because elders say don't say break it down, but explain. People who are into polygyny, that is a man having more than one wife, and are happy and content with it, don't sit there and bash their head about monogamous relationships where it's just one man and one wife. People who are into monogamous relationships where it is one man and one wife, don't bash their head about people shouting at a club talking about how single they are. The only ones who do that are the ones who are single, having too much time on their hands to talk about monogamy or polygyny. You know why? Because when you start talking about a power couple, be it polygynous or monogamous, they're too busy handling their own business. But what we see coming on in economics and social matters, with everything going on, you get more stress when you're by yourself because you ain't got no one to sit there and share the, quote, burden and hurdle with. He's not there to hold her to sit there and say everything gonna be all right, we're gonna make it through. She's not there to sit there and tell him you don't have to sit there and go and do something stupid to become incarcerated in order to get things to be met. Do you know they say that many of the people who are males who are incarcerated for X amount of time were men who were single, who did not have a woman that was wise in his ear saying, sweetheart, don't do something stupid. He didn't have the person that was, no disrespect intended in wording, maybe a pain in his ass, standing at the door like, don't do the robbery, everything's going to be okay. He just went straight on through and did something that was crooked. He didn't have that helpmate to sit there and be like, no, don't do that. That's not intelligent. You're better than that. He didn't have that lady that was in his life so he could sit there and bounce thoughts off of, and she bounced thoughts off of him. But when you have, and I want to use that as an example, a relative of mine telling me to tell my child that boys are nasty, you don't think your man is on your level to even sit there and entertain that. You will sit there and go out with your homegirls or go out with, quote unquote, the employee husband or the office husband because you don't think, sweetheart, that your man is worth of a certain value to even be seen. You know, like that Andrea inside that movie that Tyler Perry did when the husband was like, why are you in my office? Oh my gosh, boss is going to see you. That kind of mentality. So we want to sit there and point out, if we will, and what we're talking about for reference purposes. Now, I'm going to want to explain the meme that's on the left-hand side. Man get a woman, woman get a man. And of course, as talking about this with family and loved ones, the many get a good one. And there's nothing wrong with saying it, but it is implied already. But we also want to make sure that while getting one that is good, that you are also good for what you're getting. See, when you start talking about per se engagement, what are we engaging in? A man and woman before the wedding, before the marriage, actually, they have an engagement. What are they engaging in order to sit there and state that they're engaged? That's the question. The struggle in economic spirit and growth has a solution. Now let's be raw. And I say this in no disrespect. When you find, like like I said, I've been chilling with more family and talking with more family and things of that kind of nature. I have a younger cousin who sat there and said that he is a sponsor of OnlyFans. And he sat there and showed me the pictures of the women that are on the page that he sits there and has and endorses. And I'm sitting up there looking like, are you serious, B? Like, yeah. Like, yo, this one was working there, and then she left that to sit there and do OnlyFans, and you know, she's getting that guap. She's getting it, man. I'm sitting there looking at my relative like, yo, bruh, what you're seeing is what others are seeing. There's nothing, no disrespect intended to the lady, unique. Like, yeah, you know, but no. I'm not trying to sit there and be preachy. I'm not going to come off as a 44-year-old man who, when my teenage years, that I never did not look at a sex magazine. I did. I'm not going to play holier than thou. But you want to sit there and, as it says in the prophets, in Isaiah 42, restore. So the same kind of traps that women have gone through with men and that men have gone through with women, your 16, 17-year-old cousin doesn't have to sit there and go through that. Your 16, 17-year-old nephew or niece doesn't have to go through that. Never, when you are attempting to enlighten people, make them feel that you are above them. That's why, I mean, he rest in peace. I respect Dr. Sebi. He talked about his diet, and then he started to present other things about diet. Dr. Sebi never came off, may he rest in peace, as I always ate perfect. I always dealt things perfectly. No. The lady who's a Muslim, Shahrazad Ali, she wrote a book, 2 books, I want to mention, called The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman, which I have. Shahrazad Ali also wrote a book, and they made fun of her in that show In Living Color back in the day, The Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man. See, where she messed up, not trying to snap on another author, where she messed up is Black women will say this is about me, but it's not. So you're telling me, Miss Ali, who writes a book that says that if the Black woman is, quote, out of place, to give her the open hand smack in the mouth, for those who know way back in the 90s when this stuff was being talked about, it never applied to you. You are no example of what you're talking about in any of your literature. You got to miss me with that. Because in truth, and is not playing holier than thou, the prophet Isaiah in Isaiah 53 said, all we like sheep have gone astray. So never ever come off to anybody as if you're that one. You're the best one. You don't know what in the world somebody is talking about. You didn't sit there and be a little boy in the hood running in the store and stealing, as I sit there and talk about ever so often. Having an allowance in my pocket. Could have bought it, but I just told to steal it as a child, not as an adult. See, people can relate to you more when you relate to them without being fake at the same token. You understand? When we read Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 20, in the scriptures, it says, there is not a man that doeth good and sins not. So never come off talking to relatives, friends, loved ones, or anyone of that sort as if I have made it. Because the only thing he or she got to say to you is, bring me to where you at. Bring me to the level where you are, and we can sit there and see what it is. Because as long as we use some of the same bathrooms, working at some of the same jobs, sitting on some of the same buses and trains, using some of the same Ubers, and having a bank account in some of the same banks, I need you to bring me to where you are. When you can sit there and show me that there's no children born out of wedlock in your family, I need you to bring me to where you are. These are things, family, that we want to sit there and talk about for reference purposes, if we will. The struggle in economic spirit and growth has a solution. Now, do you know, regardless of how people feel about high school proms, and I have my thoughts on that, but do you know that divorce court and things of that kind of nature was more so endorsed and encouraged more so than people getting together. And when I say getting together, I'm talking about in respect. There was, correct me if I'm wrong, no wedding court, marriage court. There was divorce court. Break up, separate. You understand? It went, not to be raw, when I was in high school in the 1990s, they used to give away scented, flavored, studded, colored condoms to the students. They would stand in front of the high school, one person with a brochure saying 101 things to do besides sex, give it to the boys and girls of the school. And then the other one would sit there and give away, again, regular, lifestyle, Trojan, Magnum, studded, flavored, colored, glow in the dark, actually, condoms to the students. Well, if you're going to do it, just be safe about it. It went from that in the 1990s to where you can get an abortion and you don't even have to sit there and tell your parents about it. Do we begin to sit back and see how the things have gone decrepit after a while? You understand? It has. The movie Sugar Hill. I forgot. I should have known by now as much as I talk about it with people. Romeo played by the guy Wesley Snipes, and his brother. I forgot his brother's name in the movie, and I forgot his brother's name in real life. But the guy Romeo in the movie Sugar Hill was told by his brother, who's older than him, I used to look up to you. The older brother is telling the younger brother that I used to look up to you. The older brother eventually committed suicide and paralyzed his brother after he did patricide. Patricide is when you kill your father. So he assassinated, murdered his father, committed suicide, also paralyzed his brother. But one of the things in a movie that the guy who was playing in Sugar Hill, for those who did watch it, one of the things he said in there struck me. Because see, Romeo in the movie had a lady. And the guy who was playing his brother said, "And you got a sweetheart. I don't even have that." See, when we read, not in a fairy tale matter, but in truth, it is not good that man be alone. You see that he wanted to help his brother, tried to help his brother, and eventually the wife of Romeo stated, "You want to help a brother who does not want to be helped." You understand? The peace, the tranquility, even in Hebraic thought, of the quote, power of a woman, and speaking no disrespect intended, is not the part that she gets her menses from. You're born with that as a little baby. So growing into a woman, that's not where your powerhouse is, in between your legs. You was already born with that. The power that one has when they use it for righteousness as opposed to wickedness is what Proverbs talks about. See, in Proverbs, when it talks about it in the scriptures, it goes into the aspect of it being used sadly for wickedness. And with her much fair speech, she causeth him to yield until an arrow strike through his liver. And he knoweth not that it is the course of his life, is what Proverbs 7 says. So just as she can sit there and use that quote power from above her shoulders, not from her roller, nipples, vagina, and clitoris, the lowest chakra, as some people will call it, but from the mind that is in the upper part of one's being that the people see physically first. You can use it for uprightness and positivity and growth. There are all kinds of examples in the scriptures. For instance, the part in which Cain is told, Sin crouches at the door, and to you it's his desire, but you can rule over it. Men, we got to stop, the bullshit, and thinking that a woman telling us something makes us weak, simp, a punk ass, or a bitch. Excuse the language. But this is how, speaking with loved ones and family, immediate and extended, it's like, I ain't listening to no woman, nigga. Like, wow. So when we talk about someone in the scriptures now, like David, who killed not only Goliath, but for those who know the story, when Goliath got killed by David, Goliath's brothers approached David like, yo, dude, you killed my brother. David killed more than one giant. When you read in Chronicles, Goliath's brothers approached the house of Israel after Goliath passed away. Did you know that? Somebody killing giants, listen to a woman named Abigail. David was not a simp. David was not henpecked. You can't, no disrespect, and say that David went out kind of like Eli, the high priest, went out. You listen to your children over what is righteous. You can't say that. And when David was in the wrong later on, he said, Katati, I have sinned. Not the woman you gave me. She gave me the tree and I ate. You not trying to take no responsibility. One of the things that women say about us males is that we do not accept accountability. Women been saying about that about us as men for quite a while. I watched the movie with my little princess, the Mufasa movie, the new Lion King movie that came out. And in it, there's a part that says one of the lions is saying, well, us males have a difficult time listening to the women. Me and my little princess did go and see that new Mufasa movie. But the point in looking at all of that and talking, say, about that is for the house of Israel, to use that as an example. If you have a leader killing giants and who listened to a woman named Abigail, and what he listened to her about was not to be, no disrespect intended, a hothead. Her husband, Nabal, disrespected David. David, not trying to say he was a hothead, was like, yo, I'm about to fly his head off his shoulders to where nobody that's around is going to be able to piss on the wall. I'm going to get at Nabal. David really wanted to get at Nabal in the scriptures. Abigail, wisdom, he said, if you do that, and when you become a leader, they're going to remember what you did in your emotions, David. They're going to remember what you did not thinking clearly. And he listened and hearkened to her. And it did not make David a simp, a coward, a weak man, or a simp. Keep on listening, brothers, to these men like Rehoboam listened to in the scriptures. See how it's a living book? Rehoboam was trying to find out, how do I get the people to want to be on, quote, my side? The elders from Solomon's time. You know Solomon, the wisest man? The elders that were around Solomon, now around Rehoboam, said, if you serve the people, they'll serve you forever. That's what the elders of Israel told Rehoboam. The Rehoboam is about 40, 41 years old at this point. The people who were around Rehoboam since he was a child, yo, listen, man, this is why you got to watch your peoples, brothers. Watch your peoples that are around you. Because Rehoboam's peoples that was around him from when he was a child, like, listen, man, my father was like this, I'm going to be tougher. Now, these people that were around Rehoboam is what we could call haters. Rehoboam had a title. Rehoboam had a matter of being a leader. Everybody that's around you is not on your side, bruh. You understand? So Rehoboam was around wise elders and a bunch of young haters. Because if a person is not a hater, they're going to want to see you shine. But if a person knows that they're not shining with you and they're hating and jealous on the sideline, they're going to try to do things to mess up your flow and mess up your growth. And that's what Rehoboam was around. The knuckleheads. He didn't take the counsel from the elders that was saying, if you serve them, they will serve you forever. Get it? For the rest of your life. You're going to have people catering to you, Rehoboam. Just give them in righteousness before our maker what they want. They're not going to turn their back on you. But he listened to the people we can see later on were haters who were not King Solomon's sons. So they could care less about the kingdom because they didn't have the kingdom. Well, shit, if I ain't got it, ain't nobody else gonna get it. That kind of, excuse me, bitch ass nigga mentality that some of them, even in the ancient world, had. And these are things that we want to sit there and not have brought down from generation to generation in that particular case. When we spoke earlier about the law being free of emotion, these is going on in economics. And all of that, I can be good by myself. I don't need nobody. That is not helping the future. That is not keeping the lights on. That is not keeping the phone bill paid, man. That is not keeping the refrigerator filled and the electric bill to get paid to sit there and keep the refrigerator on that has the food in it. So was it an economic trap done by witches or warlocks maybe? To sit there and promote living single, divorce court. I don't need nobody. I do bad all by myself. Damn, man, you can't say you're going to do good by yourself, be good to somebody else, and you want someone to be good to you. What happened to that kind of energy and, quote, putting it out in the atmosphere? Whatever happened to that? Miserable people wanting to sit there and encourage that. And for those who do know, been following the platform, whether you in your feelings or not about me being around family when they was cutting turkey and ham, and I was like, I'm not eating the ham. I'm gonna be around fam to try to sit there, and I learned something too while calling myself, I'm going to be around family around their quote unquote holiday times, and I'm not. No, we're not doing this and that. I learned a lot too. I learned from the older men in the fam how not to mess up a relationship, getting advice. I learned from the older men around how to sit there and deal with a daughter who's having a baby. How to sit there and emotionally understand that she's getting older. I will always call my little one. I don't care what nobody say. That's just me. All right. Her mother sit there and other female friends in the family, but like she's not little, she's my little one, not yours, mine. So I'm just say it like that. I'm saying all of that to say that how to sit there and know that your child is becoming an adult who's having another one brought into the earth, and how to emotionally sit there and deal with it. Not be on some, I'm not ready to become a grandparent. You was not around in the room when the child was being sired and conceived. So you was not in a thought when you wind up finding out you becoming a grandparent. I promise you, you was not in one's mind. And so, or in the people's mind who were making a baby. And so I'm saying all of that to say, in that particular case, the reason why we think we got struggling going on, I need a second job. If we had people in our lives where we can bounce economics back and forth, probably wouldn't feel we needed that. Perhaps, huh? See, when you have one who's on your team and you're on that person's team, and it's a power couple, as the saying goes, that's already two checks coming in, as opposed to one person bringing in two checks from two different jobs and working oneself like, oh, I'm tired. Oh, I'm tired. You can have more rest when the quote burden is being shared and it becomes lighter. Case in point, when you look at commercial corporate buildings, right? And so forth, the bill that they pay the owners of the property or so, it generates its own money. So if you have, for instance, a cell phone bill, but you're using your cell phone for business, for economic and financial purposes, you don't have to use the job check money because the phone is another source of income. So it, quote, pays for itself. But when I can do bad by myself, ain't nobody worth me. I'm better than that. You're going to find yourself by yourself In reality, in society, in economics, and things of reality going on, while one is still saying, I'm good by myself. We can't be like Jonah. No disrespect to the prophet. Everything is going, this is happening, that's happening. And you go in the bottom of the matter, like we read earlier in Isaiah 42, into the holes and fast asleep like Jonah when everything is going on. Things are chaotic. Things need to get better. I'll give you a case in point in the scriptures, showing how it is a book you can apply to life. There's a famine in a house, meaning there's a lack of food. They got money, but if you can't buy none with the money becomes worthless because there's a famine. Jacob said to his sons, why do y'all look at each other? Lama tit aru, shamati okil bamitzrayim. I heard there's food in Egypt. Now go down to Egypt and get some food before we die. That's in the scriptures. Jacob is saying to his children who are grown, why y'all just looking at each other? You got to go over there and get sent for the family, man. There's a famine going on. So now when we have a famine for spiritual growth, we have a famine for economic growth, we have a famine for mental growth, who's going to sit there and feed the spiritual, mental, and economic matter? Because we are already talking about, I need another job, which is going to sit there and cause the economic factor to be fed. But then when the physical comes in, and by physical, I don't mean carnal or sexual. When I say physical, I'm talking about two jobs, be it one full-time, both part-time, or both full-time, or both part-time, or whatever like that. It takes a toll eventually. So what happens then? Were we made to work day and night like that? And I'm not trying to be personal or disrespectful. I personally have two jobs. I work part-time at one and full-time at another. You understand? I sit there and sometimes, not to get too personal, sounding sympathetic or anything of that kind of or anything like that. Do you happen to have any more hours? I'm off from my other job. If you let me know by this date, I will sit there and go in and clock in. I do that ever so often personally. You understand? So again, I'm not trying to come off as holy in the thou with anything of that kind of sort. You could talk about things in the same ways when you know it. Everything you could put into a book, you didn't necessarily get from a book because you are out there living in a certain matter. So, looking at it like this, the struggle becomes less. I talked with immediate family, males and females. And not to get too personal, I make plans to pay bills with money that I did not get yet. When I get this check, I'm going to pay this. See, if you had somebody in your corner and in your circle, say significant other, spouse, your list of what you got to do might be less than necessary because now y'all lists are coming together. But when we got relatives saying to tell little girls that boys are nasty, and excuse me, when you sitting up there saying, well, tell little boys that marriage don't mean shit because you got women in pornography and marriage done sat there and dropped the ball. I looked at a distant relative of some of the other ones like, what the do? Yeah, ain't no point getting married, Joe. Everybody out there, excuse me, fucking. So I'm like, wow. So I'm saying all of that, part of the language, family, to sit there and have it like, what are we doing, thinking, and so forth? Where, again, is the growth at? And I'm not speaking as a person holier than thou. I'm not saying don't get a job if it's needed, because we don't want to be lazy either. You understand? We want to be productive. It's expected that when a man, before he passes away, he gives his children his inheritance. So it's expected for him to have already worked for something. See, 50 Cent, the rapper, whose son is in his 20s, He's been noted for online now saying things like his son just want to live off of what his father did. To my knowledge, 50 Cent wants to change that narrative, the rapper I'm talking about. That maybe certain things that he did probably wasn't the best. You have to respect somebody who wants to sit there and acknowledge that. When the man who has hundreds of thousands of dollars, the basketball player Shaq, and he speaks upon encouraging his children and not giving his children the money, but giving the money to his children's school and business so it can thrive. You have to respect that. You understand? Solomon said he has to leave his wealth to his children in Ecclesiastes chapter 2 in the scriptures. Also stated he don't know whether his children are going to be a wise man or a fool, but he has to leave it. You can't take it with you when you die. We Israel, we're not Egypt. Egyptian royalty, they used to put the gold inside the tomb. No, we leave it for those who need it for later on who are alive. We don't put it in a tomb with the dead. They can't use it. We have to leave it to the future. Israel is a futuristic people. That Y sound in Yisrael represents the future tense. So we have to sit back maybe and think futuristic in certain cases. So the point in this meme, hearing family, friends, immediate and extended talking about this struggle is hard. It's real right now, dude. It's because you're trying to do everything by yourself. That's why it's so much of more of a burden. See, these economic things like in these commercial and social buildings and everything like that, those places pay for themselves. So the burden is not as heavy. The struggle is not as heavy. But when you, and I say you, I'm talking about us, don't sit there and accept one's love. That's some real craziness. I don't even know why you want to help. Well, when little girls are taught, that their vagina is their pocketbook and that's how you control a nigga, excuse my language, I've heard things. Somebody who wants to, quote, treat a special or right. Oh, you just want that. He wasn't taught that she was truly entitled, but she was shown Foxy Brown, the older and the younger version from the 70s and the 90s, both Foxy Browns. Little Kim. You were shown Superhead, who sits there and performs sexual rights to all kind of rappers and everything like that as a, quote, way to go. You understand? There are elders in my family that stated they did not prostitute, but was told that their vagina is their pocketbook. They didn't do it, but was told by other relatives, dick go in, money come out. We talking about the things that has been spoken about and presented immediate and extended fam. That's what you use to control one. As long as I got a pussy between my legs, niggas is always going to love this. So now when we are talking to our youth and talking to our people, there is no disrespect intended, a way to say this entire presentation in Hebrew, but it's not going to be understood by many. So the wording I'm using is trying to be as raw as possible, but try to sit there and get this message out to the people for reference purposes. I want to say this in due respect. Do we think, family, that the woman in the time of Solomon, that's my baby? No, that's my baby. Do you think it was? My Lord King, if I found favor in your sight, cause this lady to give me back my child. It's mine. Do you think that's how it was? Or when you got one of the women up there saying, it be neither mine nor hers, kill it. Can we imagine how the conversation went before that? You don't want to see, as I have heard, women argue with another woman about their child. If you think mothers get at their children, you don't want to see a woman get at a woman over her child. Those women in the time of Solomon, the idiot who sat there and just showed she was not the parent by saying it be neither mine nor hers. So that means you know what it's yours. It be neither mine nor hers. Kill it. Like, a mommy won't say that. The other woman said, give it to her before you kill it. That's what a mommy would say. The other one's not a mommy. You want me, lady, to take this child and put it to death after I had one of the soldiers fetch a sword? Really? Do you really want me to put this child to death? That's murder, by the way. You want me to murder this baby? You want me to murder the baby? No, I'm not murdering this baby, man. Give the baby to the mother right there. You understand? So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to sit there and bring out for reference purposes. The struggle is real with us because we refuse to be humble and accept somebody or something. A hard head make a saw behind. Our parents, I'm sure, heard that kind of statement. So when you start talking about things is hard, yo, things is difficult, maybe because we have a hard head. You understand? Things are difficult. Things are not as easy and smooth. Maybe because we chose to sit there and say, I'm better off by myself. So you handle that by yourself. When the one who made all things said it's not good for a man to be alone. So how in the world, if it's not good for men to be alone, and you're the helpmate, sister, can it be good for you to be alone? And brothers, if our maker said before our help was made, that's not good for us to be alone, how in the world can we be okay by ourselves? Again, this is not trying to be disrespectful. Joseph was incarcerated. So I'm not trying to snap on men who are or were in jail. Joseph was in jail for a crime he didn't do from some chick that lied on him. And after Joseph being incarcerated, his man's, quote, did not help him when he got out after he helped his man's when they was on lockdown. Who that sound like? Your brothers hate on you. They jump you, bring a lie to your pops, tell you later on that you're dead. We have another brother and he's not. Oh, that's the story you told Abba? Okay, that's what you told Pops? Okay, wow, that's deep right there. All right, let's move on. Continue with your lie. And we are upright men, are not no Canim. That's what they said in the Hebrew when talking to Joseph, thinking it was Zafnat Paneah. Atem Canim, you're upright men. This is what you're telling me. No, what's going to happen is you all become incarcerated. I'm going to send you back so that way your family can eat. This one right here named Simeon, I'm going to put him back in incarceration. And when you bring your baby brother, then I'll know that you are Isha Cain, if you are a man of uprightness. And when they went back, they told Jacob what happened is, why did you deal ill to tell the man that you were supposed to go and get bread and bring it back? We wouldn't know what the man was going to say. You didn't have to know what the man was going to say. You were supposed to go there and get something to eat for the kids. You're sitting up there having family dialogue with everybody on the earth. We're hungry here. But Jacob didn't know that was his son that was already in rulership. You understand? So eventually, for those who do know the situation, he winded up telling his brothers who he was. But something that Joseph said that we want to sit there and bring out, if we will. The generational curses and the problems we got, we going to let that flow to Ephraim and Manasseh, my children. We ain't going to let that flow to Cushim, the son of Dan. We ain't going to let that flow to Guni, the son of Naphtali. We're not going to let that flow to Arieli, the son of Gad. We're going to end that right here. Merari, Gershom, and Kohat, your sons of Levi, and the sons of Judah, Shelah and Zerah, we ain't continuing that. That bullshit, that we went through stops here. That lie that y'all brought the father stops here. We're not continuing that generational curse. Me getting back at y'all brothers for what y'all did to me, that shit is dead now. We good. What we have done recently as fam is continue the generational curses. Grandma this, grandpa that. And it's not to shame a family. Look, the drama that happened with James Brown's burial between one quote set of kids and the other. When James Brown, may he rest in peace, passed away, it was chaos between his children and the family members. When do we take as, say, an example to stop that kind of foolery? You understand? So these are things, when we start talking about the struggle, it goes beyond you having to catch up on a bill here and there. It goes into the fact that we are spiritually antisocial. Tell your daughter boys are nasty. Tell these boys all these little girls is damn near hoeing, so it ain't even worth being married. They ain't worth the ring on their finger. These are things that we as males and females have said of each other, and it has to end. And we can start it by implementing that kind of matter, by speaking power to one another. Like it says in Isaiah 42, and no one says, talking so cheap, doing it sleep. Yes, but at the same token, you can bring out things by what's said. Restore. You got this. Everything going to be all right. You understand? And that is where the power lies in. Because when little girls are told that their vagina is their pocketbook, I want to say, in no disrespect intended, right? When she and him climax, what happens after each of them come? B-U-M. When they reach that point of climaxing, then you got to go wash. Then you're hungry. You need something to eat. You want to relax. You're now cuddling together after all of that, quote, activity. Then what happens? See, you already stated that was the epitome of what it is. So what happens after that climax, and what movements are done after such? These are things that we want to sit there and talk about for reference purposes. So if a male and a female are growing up, they in their late teens or early 20s, and I've known, no disrespect intended, of even in their 40s and 50s, is saying, hey, beautiful, how you doing? Here's a flower or something like that. It doesn't mean that he wants to sit there and, quote, blow your back out. You understand? Just because she sits there and pays a compliment, brother, does not mean she wants to, quote, be on her knees. We have gone as a people to depravity. We, not him, her, the people over there, we, anachnu. You understand? And these are things that we care to sit there and bring out. And then when reality comes into play, when things come into play, when sadness comes into play, we don't have no energy to sit there and bounce that sadness back and forth on. So we hold it in. We, not him or her, not understanding the law, you shall rebuke your neighbor and not bear sin on account of it. You start moving. Leviticus 19 says you shall rebuke your neighbor. You don't hold it in. You don't sit there and move funny style. Yo, you're moving weird, funny. Why? We have to strange for? Because he or she is too much of a coward to sit there and speak upon their feelings. We are told to be strong and of good courage, which means that you must sit there and speak that truth. Don't hold that in. Let it out. These are things we want to talk about. Now, I was told from my brother and friend, Salih Ben Yah, language excused. Bring it out. And we want to sit there and talk about this because these are the things that, well, being around family and getting out of my shell of being antisocial and a hermit to a certain extent. Let's see what some of the things that people have been promoting in this. If you got a nigga and you struggling, bitch, you single. This is something that we have to sit back and think about. Now, the N word is supposed to be for male. The B, some females have called each other females the B word as a term of endearment. You understand? What is expected of a man, not using the N word per se, but to sit there and to cause a female to not have that struggle? To sit there and have it to where she has a quote support system. Years and years ago, a lady told me essentially that women look for a sense of security in a man. But when you got women who ain't even telling little girls, or girls who are young women, or young women about what to bring to be accepting of the security, that's a problem. She's going to see that as, you want to control me. You're trying to use your finances to control me. You're trying to use the fact that you're the one who can drive to control me. You're trying to sit there and be a narcissist and have control over me. But I'm not going to be controlled, okay? Because no nigga owes me. And so now when you're 60 years old, 70 years old, who knows how long you may have to go? What energy did you leave into this earth? You understand? I got this from the internet, looking up things. If you got up and you struggling, you single. I've had females tell me, well, if he can't help me here and there, then what do I need him for? Well, if you're supposed to be the help to him, and he's supposed to be humble enough to accept the help without thinking he's a coward, then you can sit there and grow together in that case. But again, when we're told, I don't need your help, I don't need you. Well, I don't need you either. I'm good by myself. And when we promote that and the children come up and they see that, then what are we supposed to sit back, do, and think? I've endured the worst times of life alone. I don't need anyone. If you're in my life, check this out. If you're in my life, it's because I value you and want you there. You arrogant piece of whatever. Are you serious about that? I've endured the worst times of life alone. I don't need anyone. Remember that statement used to be? Until the bills get high. Until dispossess and foreclosure notices come in. Until court notices and eviction notices come in. See, you told people all along, this my shit. That's my couch, nigga. But now, when things come into sad reality, and it's no longer an emotion can sit there and sign a check, and feelings do not cash checks. Now, what do you do? Do you do what my younger cousin showed me? This person was a teacher. Now she's shaking her ass on OnlyFans and she's getting it. Is that what you have been lowered to sit there and put yourself, quote, out there like that? Or you as a man being known to be, quote, thirsty for these kind of energies? These are things that we care to sit there and bring out. But the things that we're talking about struggling with, it comes in part from saying, I don't need anyone. Yes, you do. We did not come into this earth asexually. Our parents were with the opposite gender, excuse me, in order for us to be here. So someone needs somebody. Physically, spiritually, emotionally, and when that lacks, we as a people generally come with the foolery, well, it's better to be by yourself than with the wrong person. So you just expect the wrong person. You don't sit back and think, I can be a help to somebody and somebody be a help to me. I'm gonna be good for that person be good for me. We can't say that. Does that hurt us to say that? As opposed to saying, not trying to tell you what to say, but we have been saying for damn near too long, for far too long, it's better be by yourself than with the wrong person. No, it's not good that man be alone. And we have examples to show that to be the case and so forth. You understand? I've endured the worst times of life alone. That's not good. Somebody should have been there for you. I don't know everyone's situation, but let's move on. I don't need anyone. Now, here's the arrogant part, no offense intended. Now, this is man to woman or woman to man. If you're in my life, it's because I value you and want you there. Well, do you have value on yourself that you want to be in someone else's life? Or is it just per se, if you're in my life, it's because I value you? For what? What is the value or the price? Because in Hebrew, for instance, value and price, makir, is the same word. So what is the value or the price that you have for, quote, someone in your life? What is the purpose of, quote, someone in your life? And looking at it in that particular case, it's because I value you and want you there. So I don't need you. I just want you. So the value that you have of the other person is not for necessity, but for desire. Because remember, I don't need anyone because I've already gone through the rough times by myself. And shut up. Shut up, humble yourself. Realize that we are hurt people and we need healing. Real talk. You understand? Sisters, accept a man loving you. Brothers, accept a woman loving you. Put down that Jericho wall and hear the screams of the children of Israel around you, if you get what I'm saying. That wall of Jericho that fell due to the shouting of the house of Israel. Put down that Jericho wall that we have as a palisade in our hearts toward each other. For the house of Israel tried to go an example by saying, David, not a simp, listen to a woman, doesn't make him a coward. Rehoboam, listening to his jealous, ignorant friends, lost a good part of the kingdom. Because you're around those who don't have your best interest. You understand? Yes, about the story of Shimshon Udalala, Samson and Delilah. Teach maybe. She ran her game on Samson and got hit with the cinder block when he passed away too. Running game and trying to manipulate and disrespect cost Delilah her own life. If we read, it's better to be in a rooftop than in a house with a contentious woman. Women, don't be contentious. If we read that the man who troubles his own house shall inherit the wind, don't trouble your own house, bruh. This goes back and forth between men and female, female and male. All that pointing of the finger, you know what Solomon said about that concerning males who point fingers? It's the same kind of man that scrapes his feet. We know what we call that today? This is in Proverbs, in the Bible, chapter 6. Proverbs 6. The forward man, the coward, the weakling. He points with his fingers and scrapes with his feet, is what Proverbs chapter 6 says. A man who scrapes with his feet doesn't pick his foot up to make a step. He is stuck in the mud. That's why he's dragging his feet. He scrapes with his feet. He doesn't pick his foot up as a man. Read in Proverbs chapter 6, if you will, family. You understand? The forward man, the weak man, the coward man scrapes with his feet and points with his fingers. Instead of saying, like Isaiah 53 says, or we like sheep have gone astray, and let's sit there and get it together. You got more wrongs than me. And I didn't do that many wrongs. But then we sit there, hear from parents, tell children, 2 wrongs don't make it right. We sit there and say 2 wrongs don't make it right, at the same token saying, I don't have as many wrongs as you. What are we doing? So who is blind but the servant that we read of in Isaiah 42? We have to sit there and change that mindset, family. See, all of this gets into why you find people talking about, I got to do more for self. It's because we didn't want to do for each other. Let me give an example without naming names. Case in point. Last weekend, right? If I can be heard well, please give me a number 4, family. Thank you for that. If I can be heard well and people in good spirits, please type in the number 4. Thank you. My little princess, there was a baby shower, if you will. And I was the appointed DJ. LOL. Okay. I'm not into the scratching and everything, but I did a little something. You feel me? All right. At that event, the only thing we definitely was not going to allow, besides alcohol, because the child is 18 and most of the friends are in their early 20s, is there was absolutely, positively, thank you for that, family, for typing in 4. Salia, Man King, and It's All Good. The one thing that we definitely, besides alcohol, was not going to allow was people, quote, grabbing a mic and rhyming. And people did come like, yo, you could play that instrumental, B. I got some flows, I got some rhymes, I got some tracks. No, this is still, a child party turned into adult. You know how some of those kind of things goes, or baby shower turned into adult event. That is the one that we was not going to sit there and allow. I say all of that to get to the point of this. They honored that. And I said, yo, man, go to the studio, find one that you can sit there and build with and get your tracks on there. You doing a track at a baby shower, bruh, man, is not going to sit there and give you that exposure. No offense intended. Doesn't mean somebody in there couldn't tell somebody else who tells somebody else, but you don't want to use, there's a spiritual meaning in that. You don't want to use, say, a baby shower event to sit there and do a grown matter. Laying down tracks is a grown man, a grown woman thing. Go to the studio, get your business card, get your YouTube, get your tracks together, get everything that you need to sit there and make that move. You coming to a baby shower ready to rhyme, young brother, or to sit there and flow a cappella, young sister, because one lady was like, you don't even need a beat. I can just sit there and sing. We're not allowing that at this event here. Go to the studio and get that done. And here is the deep reason in that particular case. Get your foot out the mud and go and grow. See, by enabling the lack of growth, you're doing the younger ones a damage. The so-called Falashas, Beta Israel out of Ethiopia, they say, deal for our children, even if we don't make it. See, my point in all of that is it's about being, say, futuristic. Israel in the wilderness did not think their children was going to make it. In Numbers chapter 13, Numbers chapter 14, these little ones that you thought was going to be a prey is going to get the land that you, our house of Israel, rejected. So I'm pointing out this. When we see evictions, court cases, when we see people, male and female, one part of the United States, north, south, east, west, talking about it's struggle, it's so difficult, things is going on. The ancient house of Israel did not see themselves in the land of Canaan in the wilderness. The children winded up getting it. What are we going to leave for the children but another struggle? What are we rejecting? Each other. What are we rejecting? The future. So when we die off, like the generation in the wilderness, and the children winded up getting what we rejected, we didn't do our portion to be the elders to tell the children, I was there through that wilderness. Y'all sit there and make it great. No, we died in that wilderness. And the children got to sit there now without us as elders as a guide. Do we see the futuristic matter? But as long as we have foolish people like Rehoboam's fans, like some relatives and loved ones and extended family and so forth saying, tell little girls that boys are nasty. What are you teaching? Tell little boys these girls ain't even worth the wedding ring. What are you teaching, man? You understand? What exactly are we imbibing into the future? That's what we got to sit back and think about. And as these economic struggles and as these times of troubles and Jacob's trouble is coming upon us, we have to sit back and think, brothers and sisters, what to do to prevent it, why we got into it, and how to prevent it. Just don't sit there. We got into it. We now make a resolution for the matter. Let's continue, family. Thank you for that. I hope and pray no one was offended. Let's examine. What will I need you for? Men and women say that to each other. I can do bad by myself. You ain't the only one. You sound like some whole stuff. I am not asking what I did wrong. You outgrow people. Don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. And then we sit back, for those who know ourselves as Israel, say from the 70s, the 80s, and 90s, knowing some of the songs, fingers spread, our hand is weak, how to gain the strength you seek, close that hand, make a fist, send that power to the wrist. Arm in arm, arm in arm, hand in hand. My singing sounds just as horrible as some of the things that we have sat there and imbibed to the future. I know I can't sing, but I remember that song Unity growing up in Israel. Arm in arm, hand in hand. That's the only way to stand. But when we are singing that, but we are imbibing the idea and saying, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing, how in the world can it be unified? If the left hand and the right hand don't know what each other's doing, how are you going to hold the hand in hand? How are you going to hold hand in hand? You're keeping secrets one from another. That may not be helpful. You're not being, quote, an open book. You're not being, quote, honest. Things are coming out that the other party had to sit there and find out by, quote, accident or by investigating and finding out something that was not intended. The transparency is gone. The open matter of being an open book or the matter of being an open book, gone. Because we teach the youth, as we were taught, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. We have to stop that. Let the left hand know what the right hand is doing so the hands can come together and be strong. Those who do know that song know what I'm talking about. Arm in arm, arm in arm. And they even sit there and had the Hebrew version of it. Zeroa was zeroa, yad b'yad, zeha derek la'amod. You translating that song into other languages, but then no disrespect intended at the other time, sitting up there saying, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. Al todia, hasmola, asot haimina. Don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. That's not a good way to be, family. But these are some of the things that when we sit there and see the results of it, that would have prelude to the struggles that we sit there and see today. What will I need you for? If you have, for instance, 2 incomes coming in, it's going to be a lot easier. That's why you find people saying, I need 2 incomes. I need to get a second job. See, if you already had 2 incomes coming in, it would sit there and be a lot easier. Now you're trying to make it easier by you doing the 2 incomes. But then there comes a wear and tear, physically, mentally, spiritually. I ain't got no time to get other things done. I get on vacation from one job, but not the other because I'm still in probation. Do you see what we're talking about, family? I can do bad by myself. You ain't even trying to put the energy to be good. You ain't the only one. I'm not saying I was cheating or I'm into that, but hey, if you keep on treating me the way you do, you're going to make me love somebody else. As opposed to coming together, rebuking your neighbor and finding out how one wants to be treated, how one should be treated, how one can want to come together and things of that kind of nature. It's, you ain't the only one. And even if the person ain't living foul like that, like there's others, pair and a spare, one for this and one for that, and so forth and so on, I'm going to just make him or her think it's like that so they can get it together. Playing games with people who are serious, like a clown, and you will get prizes of such. I'm not asking what I did wrong. That statement right there came from a relative that I know. You realize the people around you keep leaving you. Why? I ain't asking what I did wrong. And then you stay ignorant of how to fix your situation. Because see, when the doctor sits there and says too much cholesterol, when the doctor says too much of this or too little of that, they're telling you what is wrong. But once it comes down to many cases, or in some cases, not to bash people, we have it to where I ain't asking what's wrong. I ain't asking what part I did. I'ma just react. Every action has a part of me. Every action has a reaction. I'm not at fault of anything, even though the book on grandma's shelf, as we cited, it says, "All we like sheep have gone astray." It was him. It was her. You outgrow people. That's a person that don't have a 2 or 3 year plan with you in mind. You outgrow people. You do hopscotch and you manipulate and use and try to manipulate and use in that particular case because the longevity is not there in the mind. And we already went over, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing, which means that there's a lack of unity. So, family, again, I don't come off as a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I don't know everything. I am definitely guilty of what we're talking about. Nobody is perfect. Doesn't mean we need to sit in our imperfection either, family. It is going on 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I would like to close out in saying this. This presentation was not to insult, belittle, disrespect, humiliate, or ostracize our people. It was a way to say, let's get it together. Not, as was pointed out before, you got to get it together. Let us get it together. How do we be that strength and that support to one another? Like you might see on Facebook, yo, instead of mean mugging your brother, why don't you just sit there and dap him up like, yo, you good? You good, bro? Like that. It doesn't hurt to tell a fish you swim well. I want to state that again. It does not hurt to tell a fish that a fish swims well. So there's nothing being taken away from you as a man, woman, to sit there and tell your brother or sister you can do good and you are doing good. Parents from back then, for instance, were known for physically getting at their children and will still say, you a king, so you don't need to be acting like that. And it's not to get too personal. May she rest in peace. I remember, not trying to sound haughty, I remember my mother hitting me and saying, you are entirely too cute to be acting the way you do. You're too handsome to be acting ugly. Your actions and your looks are conflicting, son. You need to step it up in good deeds because eventually your cuteness is not going to, quote, get you by. That came from my mother after she hit me. You know, one of them kind of hits that make the ear bing. I ain't the only one who went through that. Dumb hits hurt. I don't care what nobody say. I'm using that as an example to sit there and bring it out to the people, family. Let us step it up. Let us get it together, and we have the ability to do it. With that, family, hoping everybody is well and will be better. Please subscribe to the channel, comment, like, share, and I'm going to read the comments in here. All right. Shalom, peace to the viewers, listeners. Thank you for that, family. Loud and clear regarding that. I'm saying thanks. Man King saying shalom. Shalom, Man King back. Thank you all for helping me and conversing one with each other. It seems like most Israelites are going in a single direction by Torah reader. That is sad. We don't need to go in a single direction. And if we're talking about, I don't need to be with nobody. We need to be united and then go in, not to the left hand nor to the right hand, but be focused. Even single to the point where don't want to gather anymore in Israel either. That is very true. And sad at the same token. We need to sit there and come together. Arm in arm, hand in hand kind of matter, sorry. Right? But everyone need a spouse. And that is very true. And Saliyah Benya writes, Shalom at Torah Reader. Torah Reader says, Saliyah, Shalom. Excellent insight and wisdom, Aki, says by It's All Good, my spiritual old brother. Saliyah Benya, laughing emoji. And I was told by the same person, language excuse, bring it out. Saliyah Benya, laughing emoji, and the people who typed in the number 4. So definitely want to say I appreciate the support, the encouragement, and I can be reached at 908-587-4841. Never be above reproach. Never be above to where you can't be taught and shown something. Oh, House of Israel, we sat there and talked about a great person named David killing giants was even taught by a woman. And it don't make you any simp or anything like that. Sisters, it don't mean women power is going if a man got to sit there and put you on to something. You ain't my father. But I would love for somebody to give my daughter some wisdom. So just want to point that out for reference purposes. Be blessed.